Today we are in a busy and dreich Greenock. We're going to take a walk, a very, very short walk, and show you how much history is concentrated into a small area in many places in Scotland. We've just walked past the first one. The gates behind me, 17th century. We are in the Well Park in Greenock to start off the small loop that we're going to do. Welcome to Exploring Scotland's History. This is the well, hence why it's called Well Park, and it was built by John Shaw. On this side you can see his wife's initials, Helen Houston, and he has his own round the other. No water anymore, unfortunately. That is the old gates of the mansion house. That is all that is left of the old mansion house. Worth mentioning that the cellars underneath the mansion house were so well constructed that they were used as a jail for a period. This is just a bit of blank space at the Well Park, and we are looking over some various important buildings in Greenock. But this is where the former site of the sugar exchange and assembly buildings would have been. The sugar exchange enabled the sugar barons of the day to be able to market their goods on a worldwide scale. It was quite an important place as well because they were able to trade with Glasgow. Just down from the fence we have the railway that takes us right into Glasgow, and the sugar exchange had its own private entrance to the train station from here. Alexander Proudfoot secured the commission for this war memorial in 1924. Liverpool born, during World War I he was a sergeant in the Artists' Rifles. It was during this time he invented a protractor for the Vickers machine gun. He appears on the Glasgow School of Art's World War I Roll of Honour. He was actually president of the Glasgow Art Club 3 times before his death in 1957. The base of the memorial depicts a Viking ship with Victory holding a laurel wreath. With the wealth that the area was amassing, or certain people in the area, they needed banks. Where were they going to keep their wealth? Just behind me here is Bank Street. And if we turn the whole way round, that beautiful pink sandstone building is the first building that was built on the street. Strangely enough, it was a bank. And as we head down into the square and round our little loop that we're walking, many of the buildings were banks. There were lots of different banks, and it was clearly a very wealthy area at one stage. It was the old Renfrewshire bank buildings, and it was completed in 1811. You might even recognise it from the BBC adaptation of Agatha Christie's book Ordeal by Innocence in 2018. Now we pass the monument that commemorates those that lost their lives in 1820 in the Radical War. I shall put a link at the end of the video that explains in full this horrific event. The council buildings apparently have a ghost. In 2007, A young boy in Victorian garb was seen hailing from the kitchen. The staff in the building followed him, and he was nowhere to be found. They checked the CCTV footage, and he was still nowhere to be found. There was a young boy in the 1800s fell to his death from one of the balconies, so perhaps it's him. This is the Lyle fountain that sits flat bang in the middle of the square, donated to the people of Greenock by the sugar magnates. Around the top there are shields. They are all gold now. Once they were colourful apparently, but the council painted them all gold, much to everyone's disgust. But prominent families are displayed around here. Behind us is the Toon Kirk. It was built in 1760 and the spire was added in 1787. Lord Cathcart apparently got the designs from Bristol, and the spire is actually a replica of one in London from St Martin in the Fields Church in Trafalgar Square. We are now down in Cathcart Square, and all around us are very grand buildings. Nearly all of them were banks at one stage. Not an exhaustive list, but Renfrew, Clydesdale, Provident and Royal Bank all sat in Cathcart Square at some stage. Lord Cathcart was a peerage raised in the 1400s. His motto is, "I hope to speed," and the family seat is Gately Hall in Norfolk. The details on the buildings are really something to behold. It just oozes money, obviously through the sugar trading. There are various notable families who were quite prolific in Greenock at the time. Ardgowan, for instance, is one of the oldest families in the area. St John's Brae is even named after one of their ancestors. The Ardgowan estates have been on record for more than 800 years. James Watt's family also donated to the Lyle fountain. His parents became quite wealthy due to the slave trade. Another known name around Greenock is Morton. He was a local builder and the first provost of Greenock. He's also the patron of Greenock Morton Football Club, who I'm told have varying degrees of success and failure when they're playing. This statue behind me is entitled Men of the Clyde, and it was commissioned in 1975. It commemorates all the men who lost their lives in the shipyards during the two wars. It is inspired by Sir Stanley Spencer, who depicted a lot of the wartime shipbuilding. I think what is quite sad in this tiny little loop of Greenock that we're doing is we're looking at past wealth and past riches. I'm going down steps, this could end in disaster. But the past wealth is not reflected in the present. It is a Saturday afternoon and this place is dead to the world. There are buildings shut, places we remember had shops not 6 or 7 years ago, and the whole streets are shut down. It's okay if you want a pint, phone or a mortgage, but that's about it really. This is the Dutch House, aptly named by how it looks. It's said to be the oldest building in Greenock, built in 1755 by a tobacco merchant. I expect the tobacco merchant and his wealth didn't want to be too far apart because he's literally 2 doors from the nearest bank. This monument is erected on the site where James Watt was born. James was born on the 19th of January 1736. He is best known for improvements to the steam engines. He was a mechanical engineer and a chemist. The unit watt is named in his honour. His family also contributed to the Lyle Fountain. His mother and father had gained considerable wealth through the slave trade. I feel James Watt deserves his own video, so watch out for it in the future. Now the manky generators that serve the employment office in the town, but this is the former site of Mince Collop Close. Mince Collop Close was historically a rather disreputable locale. Local newspapers were constantly reporting instances of drunkenness, assault and theft in the lane, being awarded with arrests. Such a destitute area with such grandeur on all sides would have indeed drawn attention. Mince collop, incidentally, is a recipe to stretch out old cuts of meat. The meat was tenderised and stewed with oatmeal to bulk it out. It was high in protein and was even used in prisoner of war camps during the Second World War. We're in a very interesting part of town again. That is the old library. This is the old fire station. In its day, it not only housed men, but it also housed the horses that pulled the fire carts. We'll have the fire station, next we'll have the police station. The old police station, there's a rather interesting brutalist one now, which I don't think will figure in any video I'll do down here. Police station handy enough to the fire station for arsonists. The next along with the fabulous statues of the barristers is the courthouse. Next to it's Drummer's Close. We're about to tell you the story of that one. And everything is within a couple hundred yards of each other. We're now in Drummer's Close. Drummer's Close was traditionally where the accused would be drummed out of town after facing the courthouse. It's important to learn that we're looking at police stations and courthouses and various detention centres around Greenock, and there's really only a few hundred yards between each of them. So your pathway was a swift one if you were caught. So down that direction we do have things like the old police station and the old courthouse. We've got Drummer's Close where those were getting drummed out of town. But what if you were for the swing? We're back in the square and we're going to have a wee look at the ground. This horseshoe indicates the site of the gallows, though the gallows were said to be much more in front of the church steps. I guess you wanted to be close to the church steps since you were heading to meet your maker. Various people hit the gallows. A guy who beat his wife to death with a barrel stave, and there were 2 witnesses. Well, but even misdemeanors in the early 1800s could be going to the gallows to be hanged. In 1801, a chap was hanged for housebreaking. Martin is going to get some close-ups of these buildings. As you can see, he's working on them now. The amount of detail in them is quite interesting and really a nod to how far-reaching the sugar trade, the slave trade was in Greenock. We have on the right a Native American that would appear. In the middle, I'm not very sure of that guy's beginnings. But on the left-hand side, we have a person who looks quite oriental with a plait. I'm wondering, were the Opium Wars part of Greenock's history as well? Along these arches is even more fascinating. Right at the top It's cherubs that you expect, but they're all doing trades. They're shipbuilding, they're moving alcohol and tobacco. Where we cherubs are working. The buildings in Greenock have a definite air of wealth and colonisation about them. Greenock was made wealthy by shipbuilding and marine engineering, textile manufacture and of course, sugar refining. We discussed the Lyle Fountain before. Abram Lyle, co-founder of the lucrative sugar refinery Tate and Lyle, was the main contributor to it. The obvious question now is, were Tate and Lyle involved in slavery? Well, slavery in the UK was abolished before they were born. However, slaves were still utilised in plantations in the southern states of America until 1865. The symbolism in the architecture shows the past wealth of this town. Hives figure often as a nod to the sugar importation. Many of the buildings, especially the town hall and the old bank buildings, have imagery of the trades Greenock excelled in. Its importance as an import-export dock is reflected in the ships, docks and cranes carved in the building facades. The town hall also boasts a plethora of empty plinths, waiting for statues of wealthy and successful Greenockians that will sadly now never appear. Entertainers such as Lena Zabaroni and Richard Wilson hailed from the town, as did William Quarrier. I'm planning a video to discuss William and the Quarrier's village he built a Bridge of Weir. Watch this space. The James Watt, a Wetherspoon, it too was a bank. This is definitely the banking district. This is Ginger. Ginger is a sculpture done by Andy Scott, famous for the Kelpies. I'll put a video up now and leave one at the end when I visited the Kelpies at night so you really can see their form and structure. Ginger is a sculpture in memorial to all the heavy horse that worked the docks. But Ginger in particular has a story. Ginger was a cart horse who worked the docks, and he was being reversed to put a load onto one of the ships when the cart heeled back into the docks. His owner was absolutely distraught. The horse was lost. So while this statue is a nod to general cart horses in the area working at the busy dockyard, it is for poor Ginger, whose owner never really got over the loss. And it is very apt that Ginger is here nearly at the end of our little loop in Greenock, because it was James Watt who gave the idea of horsepower to the world. The tragedy is said to have taken place on the 23rd of October 1889, and Ginger is memorialised forever, looking over the really noisy main road. And I knew I wasn't going to mention it, but the brutalist police station. Gross. So that's us. We're back up at Well Park. We have done nearly 20 places of interest. We have walked, wait for it, half a mile. It has taken us probably about 2 hours because we've been filming stuff and taking photographs. But it is an example of when we look and when we research how much history is jammed into such a small area in lots of Scottish towns and cities and even out in the countryside. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and leave a comment. It really helps the channel grow. I would like to thank everyone who supports the channel through the coffee page. It is really much appreciated and helps us get the ferry over from Dunoon to here. Until next time, thank you for watching.